This was a tough one. I had a lot of trouble putting together this script. For those of you who are fresh here, I have been doing a series of class videos that are basically like guides for dungeon masters to kind of prep better for each class. Guides to pull out the narrative juice that is kind of implied and at the middle of each of these classes. The playlist is zap right there. But I had a lot of trouble with this one, which y'all voted for, the Barbarian. And I think that part of that is because the Barbarian is fighting the game. It's fighting everything, but the Barbarian is really fighting 2/3 of the pillars of the game. It works amazingly for combat. But Barbarian players and dungeon masters of Barbarians have complained that their Barbarians kind of feel out of place in most of the exploration and social parts of the game. But in my research for this video, I encountered a couple things that I haven't heard anyone talk about when it comes to the Barbarian. And they're really the things that are like the subtle underlying understanding of the words around Barbarian. And I think I've really identified this central piece of who and what the Barbarian is, that obviously you don't have to play directly according to, but that exist there. They're the societal and cultural, what is the word? Undercurrents of the Barbarian class. And I don't really have a better way to start this video than by taking the word Barbarian and defining it. So let's begin this like I'm your high school valedictorian and head to the dictionary. Prologue, words for the illiterate. Now, Merriam-Webster defines barbarian as a person from an alien land, culture, or group believed to be inferior, uncivilized, or violent, used chiefly in historical references. Wikipedia says that a barbarian is a person or tribe of people that is perceived to be primitive, savage, and warlike. Many cultures have referred to other cultures as barbarians, sometimes out of misunderstanding and sometimes out of prejudice. Cambridge most sensitively claims that a barbarian is a member of a group of people from a very different country or culture that is considered to be less socially advanced and more violent than your own. Britannica, unsurprisingly, has the most to say and is the most revealing. The word is derived from the Greek barbaros, used among the early Greeks to describe all foreigners, including the Romans. The word is probably onopoetic in origin, the bar sound representing the perception by Greeks of languages other than their own. Barbaros soon assumed a deeply negative meaning, becoming associated with the vices and savage natures which the Greeks attributed to their enemies. The Romans adopted the word for all peoples other than those under the Greco-Roman influence. Turns out that this defining the word trope is a trope because it is incredibly useful. The title of this class is a freaking slur. Calling it a slur is a little bit of an extreme take on it, but when I rediscovered this, because I knew the etymology of barbarian from my days in high school, it totally changed my perception of the class, and it made me realize all the things that we're not really talking about the barbarian that are really at the core of this. And by this definition, the iconic barbarian for me is honestly Morgan Freeman's character from Kevin Costner's Robin Hood, what is it? Den of Thieves? Yeah, Prince of Thieves, with Alan Rickman and Morgan Freeman, who is my favorite character from that movie. It's Azim. Now, Azim is a Saracen, a Moor, a Muslim who was saved by Robin in the Crusades and like kind of owes a life debt to him and accompanies him back to England. And I mean, the movie falls into a bunch of unfortunate tropes, and this character in particular falls into some even more racist and unfortunate tropes. I'm not here to really discuss that. I'm here to talk about D&D and how we can tell cool stories. But if you want to find more about that, I've linked a paper down in the doobly-doo that talks about it, I think, quite admirably. Now, as a kid, I was not hip to the kind of lower levels of racism that are sticking to the bottom of this movie's shoe. Azim was my favorite character. He's calm, he's collected, he's intelligent, he's skilled, and he is a good friend and ally. They're all qualities that I wanted to have, but none of them stick to this core class feature of the barbarian, which is our other word, rage. Violent, uncontrollable anger. I know that for plenty of people, that is the core of the Barbarian. I think it's not. And honestly, the new player's handbook has kind of pushed itself away from rage being defined as it is here. It does not have to just be an anger. It can be, I mean, calling it rage gives it a myopic vision of a battle trance, which is a tradition of battle which has existed across the world in a variety of different cultures and shapes. How do I make this useful? So we've talked a lot around this, but what is the actual problem here? The problem is that barbarians are built to fight, but they don't really serve or play well in the game when you have to be social or you have to do investigation. And I'm not here to fix the class, right? I am here to give you the tools to make an awesome story for your barbarian that is going to make them feel like they're more than just a beat stick. Now, I've written this video close to 12 times and it's come out wrong every single time, so I got bullet notes and I'm gonna ramble at you, so if this gets a little windy and twisty, stick with me. We're gonna get there together. Maybe that's excusing myself. Like, I am so passionate about this subject after 2 weeks of researching it that I have so much rattling around in my brain. I think I've got some really solid stuff to give to y'all. Let's start with talking about the Barbarian as the iconic second axis on the alignment chart. So in first edition, alignment was simple. It was law, neutral, and chaos. Law was everything inside of the walls of the little hamlet that you reached as your characters, and chaos was everything outside of it. It was the bandits on the road, the beasts in the wilderness, the wolves trying to hunt and eat children who got outside of the walls, and then orcs and liches who were trying to desperately gain power at the expense of anyone and anything. This very kind of pre-80s binary of good and evil as it's seen in law and chaos did not last long. And by the end of the first edition, a second axis, which we are all familiar with, of good and evil, was introduced into the game. And I think that the Barbarian is an important piece of this, because the Barbarians... Whoa there, Bronco. Okay, remember when I said that this was all kind of a big ramble and rant? This is a great example of that. I got halfway into this and then I really didn't make my point before I moved on. Hey, I'm editing Miles and I'm gonna kind of clean up what filming Miles in a caffeine-filled daze was trying to say. Basically, what I'm trying to point out is that the law versus chaos binary gives no room for anyone who lives outside of those walls or who is different from the people who live inside of those walls to be good, to be on the side of justice, truth, peace, kindness, and the Barbarian being inherently, by definition of the word, from somewhere else, possessed of strange and different, sometimes unfathomable habits, forces the game to expand its scope. Because suddenly we have player characters who are from outside of the walls, but we want them to be a part of our story. Fun little history note, in 3rd edition, when the Barbarian was like really added as a core part of the game, the class had illiteracy as a class feature. You literally had to spend skill points to gain the ability to read and write. But the Barbarian is from somewhere far away, but we don't want our story to be about just how different they are. We want it to still be about them. And that's why I have firmly come to the conclusion that the Barbarian's story is one of being alien. Now, I've talked about this with other classes. Every D&D character is a weirdo looking for a home. We're just gonna accept that as a truth. But the Barbarian story is one of exile, and I think one of redemption. A Barbarian comes from an alien, different society that they have either left by choice or been forced out of. And they found themselves into this new society in which our story takes place and the rest of our heroes grew up as a part of. And the Barbarians' arc is focused on their desire to redeem themselves in the eyes of themselves, of their tribe, or even their new friends. So in order to tell a good barbarian story, we have to know where they're coming from. We have to know about the tribe left behind. What do we need to ask players? What do we need to find out about the tribe? Well, I think it's twofold. We need to find out how they are different from our existing society that our campaign is set in and where the rest of our players are from-ish. And we need to figure out why they left. There are a million different options, but for me, there are 3 big paths that begin here. We can have a barbarian who has chosen to leave, who has decided that their tribe is not good, that it is faulty, that its systems are wanting. My example for this is that my wife in my Storm King's Thunder campaign right now is playing an Uthgard barbarian from Faerun of the Worm tribe. And over the course of growing up and learning how to raid with their tribe, they discovered that this was not what they felt in their heart was good, and they, after being punished for not raiding hard enough, left the tribe. The second option that I can see here is a character who was exiled, who was very much a part of their tribe and believed in it, but has been pushed away, either because of their failings or a betrayal or a misunderstanding or any of the above. And the third option is very Conan the Barbarian, a barbarian whose entire society, their entire livelihood, their home and their hearth was taken away from them, destroyed in a fiery, flaming flash. And their story of redemption is not about redemption to anyone alive, but redeeming themselves in the eyes of their old gods and their long dead family. So once we know about the barbarians' past and where they're coming from and why they left, now we can start planning out their campaign. And I have what's basically a 5-act structure, but like a couple of actionable things that you can plop down in your prep and kind of even preconceive before you get too far into your campaign prep, which is always kind of a rare ability, right? I can never plan too far ahead. I can never plan more than a game ahead, but there are some little pieces that I can kind of pre-prep and then figure out where I want to plop them in my campaign. So that's the goal for this. Let's talk about the first bit, which is give the barbarian something to run from. And this is part of you building their backstory with them, right? But you want to build something that they are fleeing, right? There's a reason that they left their home. Make sure that it is chasing them. That might be bad memories. That might be a literal ghost. That might be the barbarians' people themselves who are coming after them, trying to drag them back home. That might be the people who killed all of their people, who are hunting them down and trying to exterminate all of them. Give them something to run from. It can be emotional, it can be physical, it can be practical, it can be any number of things, but the barbarian needs to be kept away from home for a while, and it's gonna give them so much juice and like something to actually do and think about when they're not in combat so that they stay engaged at the table. If they don't move fast enough, if they don't do the right thing, drink, hide, whatever the case may be. I've given terrible examples. If they're not partying hard enough, no, but if they're not participating in running away from the thing, there should be an implied punishment to it. This doesn't have to be mechanical or specific, but you want to make this have some stakes, and you want your barbarian to be invested in it. And this, of course, requires players to be vulnerable. And I understand that the barbarian can be one of those classes that attracts invulnerable players. Barbarians out there, the most interesting part of your barbarian, because they are so strong and they're so hard to kill, is the ways that your DM can get to you. So be sure to give them some daggers to stab you in the back with. All right, so that's part one. Part two is inevitably when they slow down, when they get comfortable, or when they slip up, right? And eventually the past catches up to them. and have it catch up to them and have it matter. This moment should be exciting, it should be terrifying, it should be threatening. It can be fun if this is a fight. It's kind of more exciting if this is something that the barbarian cannot face in the usual way. They are required to not fall into the very typical barbarian rage where they just charge forward and hit things, and if they have to think about it. And even if they have to run away and use their allies to help them get out of trouble. Now, the obvious example is the big bad who wrecked their family comes and finds them and tries to capture them and kill them and all their friends as well, right? That's the obvious example. But let's say that we have a barbarian who was exiled from their tribe. What if they ran into another exile from their tribe? What if they found someone else who had gotten kicked out and they found them to be just absolutely disgusting? An example of what they could be if they kept down this same path. If it's a barbarian that left their tribe willingly, finding them wanting for whatever reason, you might have the tribe come to get them, but send a family member, someone that they don't want to just fight. They're not just gonna kill their little sister. Ideally, this is a moment in the fiction that we play in D&D where there's always a chance that the players are going to do something impossibly different and they're going to totally throw our plans into the weeds. This is a chance for the barbarian to do what they're going to have to do eventually and face their past. But ideally, this is such a surprise. It will cost them too much to actually do it. They'll the player's character will have to leave the party and return home, or they'll have to give up someone who they've come to be so attached to, or they'll have to die that they won't do it just yet, and we can have a little bit more juice in the story left. Next, as a result of this encounter with their past, of their past catching up with them and trying to grab them and drag them back down into it, they have to lose something. That might be an item, that might be a character that they care about, that might be a possible future, or maybe just self-respect, some idea that they had of themselves or the world. But as a result of that loss, in exchange for that loss, they should receive a boon. I can imagine this as like them escaping from this, and some time passes and then they meet a mentor or someone, maybe a ghost from their past, a deity, right? Maybe the source of their rage power, or whatever it might be. And this gives them something that is going to give them the power and the strength and the determination of heart to be able to return home and face their past back to where their journey began, where their exile was initiated, and face the terror that they have run from, the shame, the fear, the foe. And you can guess what happens next. The next step, the climax of the barbarian's journey, their personal quest, is that they must face their past. This could be a trip home to their ancestral grounds. This could be hunting down the individual who destroyed their people and changed their life forever. This could be tracking down the person who betrayed them and caused them to get exiled in the first place and facing them in one-to-one combat. This could be helping the ghosts of their people or a family member be put to rest. This is the climax of their redemption arc. This is when all the chickens come home to roost and we have some kind of final showdown. This could be an emotional final showdown. It could be a social final showdown. It could be exploring a tomb. Who knows? But I think that probably it's going to be most exciting if this includes a battle, because let's be real. Your barbarian chose the barbarian to be good at being a barbarian, which is lots of hitting and lots of soaking up damage. Let them do lots of both of those things. And as a result of this, as a result of them achieving their final personal goal and regaining their respect, their people's respect, or ending the cycle of destruction that the terrible creature who destroyed their lives had been perpetuating, they then find a new tribe. They move beyond their past And as much as this could be them returning back home to their tribe, this could be, and I think probably in the case of D&D, this is them truly accepting their place in the party, in their new tribe, in their new home. Because a barbarian is always going to be a little alien. They're scary, they're rageful, they do not belong with the rest of the party, not in any way. Not that anyone from the party truly belongs, but they feel especially alien because of this barbaros, this word that keeps them apart. They are not of the same world as everyone else. And so by the end of the story, maybe in the facing of your campaign's big bad, or the destruction of the crystal, or the recovering of the artifact, they accept their place among their friends, and they become a pivotal part of the journey that maybe they were just on to begin with, to run away from their past. That was a wild one. That was nuts. I hope that made some sense. I'm gonna find out in the editing. But I also have like one quick little bonus tip that's a little mechanical thing that I've been kind of testing out with some of my barbarians in games. I think that a great way, barbarians are great at doing two things. They're great at dealing damage, and they're great at soaking up lots of damage that should be intended for other people. Take the most advantage of this by giving your barbarian a kill counter and a damage soak counter. Have them manage this so this isn't your freaking problem, but have them track every kill that they actually achieve, and have them track every point of unresisted damage that they take. When they hit some huge threshold, some sizable threshold, like 20 kills, right? Or maybe like 5 boss kills, that could be fun. Or like 100+ damage taken. You can give them some boon. I recommend it be like an expendable boon, something that they can use once and then they're done with, and like attach it and tie it into their rage somehow, because that's central part of the character, as much as it's something that we haven't discussed today at all, because it works great on the table, right? It's always fun if the barbarian has more interesting and different ways to use their rage to affect the battlefield. Hey, it's Editing Miles here again. I just want to let you know that I actually built out this little system with a bunch of examples of thresholds and different kinds of bars, as well as all the different boons. Something like, 24 different boon options on a bunch of different tables. And you can get access to that by heading to my Patreon. The link is down in the doobly-doo, and pledging $1 right now. Part of my Saturday Somethings, which is just something that I do every Saturday. I write a little bit of something, an idea, a thought, what's spinning in my brain, and patrons get early access to those musings. And while we're on this subject, because I have no script, so I can just keep talking to you, we talked about how rage is kind of a misnomer. It doesn't really make sense for the actual way that the class is written and the word barbarian. It is, however, central to the character. So part of asking your player about their backstory should be asking them about how their rage manifested or manifests. I think that the rage that they have, this feature, should be directly related to their exile. It should either be the thing that caused their exile, it could be a result of their exile, or something like that. If their rage is central to the loss that they have just suffered, it's gonna feel more, it's just gonna have more storytelling juice. It's got more opportunities for you to color it when you're describing what it feels like in them. It's gonna have more opportunities for you to shift and twist it, and for them to express it as well. There's just more color and more emotional depth in it. In addition, we've talked before about how agency is super important, and therefore like losing control of your character is really sketchy. I really feel like sometimes when the circumstances are right, and if the rage is indeed anger or some uncontrollable violence in the fiction that your player is telling, they have to lose themselves to it sooner or later. You have to do that delicately. I did it with my player Zap, her half orc, half shifter werewolf barbarian. That's a whole story. They got dragon claws instead of the wolf claws. When she made contact with a powerful draconic artifact, had a whole thing happen and turned into a were-dragon instead of a werewolf and attacked all her friends, and the party will not let that character live it down, and I kind of regret doing it. So you have to be careful, and you have to get permission from your players to do it. But it can be dramatic, and it can be really fun. All right, that is it for today. As always, please don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it and you watched it to the end. Thank you so much. Please give me some comments down below about things that I missed about the Barbarian, theories that you have. If you think I completely missed the thread here, I want to know how you think a Barbarian should be enabled to do more social and exploration storytelling. And in addition, this is the third class that I've done. I want to know what I should do next. I'm going to be posting another post with a poll on it very soon on my Patreon, patreon.com/milesawaygames. Link is down in the doodly-doo below, as well as here on YouTube. So keep your eyes peeled. Thanks again for watching. Stay miles away from boredom, and I'll see you next time. Oh, the tail! Wow! Mwah. Good boy. All right, that's a video. That's a video. That's a video. Hey.